Hello, Joe Simhart here. Again, it's December 18th, and this episode is a follow-up on my last piece about the smell test and how to evaluate whether something's true or false, and how we can get carried away by influence and by our particular bias or basic assumptions about reality. So what I want to talk about is the vaccine and antivaxxers, regarding how effective they are and why they aren't, quote, preventing the spread of COVID. I've had dialogues over the past year with people that are part of the alt-right and maybe just more conservative than I am. I tend to test conservative when I took a Pew test about 5 years ago, but in the middle, so I'm an independent politically. I don't belong to either party. But however, with someone that's hard right, anyone who even leans a little bit beyond that position becomes a rhino or becomes some other name. So this is more about name calling and what happens when you end up in disagreements about things which aren't so clear, like whether the vaccine is effective or not, and how effective it is, and is it going to help us stop the spread. So I'd like to quote something from the Bible, Proverbs 12:1. It's one of my favorites. And in the King James version, which a lot of evangelicals like, it says, "Whoever loves instruction loves knowledge, but he who hates correction is stupid." So other versions say whoever loves discipline loves knowledge, and whoever hates correction is boorish or is like a dumb animal. So there's different ways to translate things, as we all know if you've looked into the Bible. This one particular gentleman, a successful businessman who once thought I was a brilliant programmer because he was about 25 years ago was on a case that I did and liked the way I worked, has been communicating with me this year, trying to convince me that the vaccine is some kind of a government hoax so that big pharma can make money. He says that Fauci is a known criminal, as is Bill Gates. He has lots of bad things to say about George Soros, some anti-Semitic tropes involved in that. So, we hear all that. Recently, he sent me a video in his long string of videos trying to convince me of his position about the vaccine. And he sent me an interview with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on the show. It's a podcast, a video podcast by Theo. He does something called the Rat Tour of lectures, and he's, podcaster and rather gentle interviewer. And this is episode 370, and so Kennedy goes on for over an hour with his anti-vax stuff about COVID and his theories, and he argues like a lawyer arguing for a client, putting all these facts together. They sound very impressive, but they're overly facile and obviously have a lot of holes in them. If a defense lawyer, or some opposing lawyer could poke holes in it, which I could do, when I looked at this video. So I responded to this gentleman, as I have been, with my criticism of RFK and the fact that, even back in the day, he was promoting the idea that thimerosal in a vaccine caused autism, and that's been totally debunked. So Kennedy is one of these people that has an idea fixate. It's something where a person has a basic assumption about something and they just won't budge. It just stays with them for the rest of their life. It's almost delusional in some ways. So, I wrote back my criticism of Kennedy, and of course, this gentleman got very angry at me in his words, and I'm not going to repeat what he said right now. So he sends me another video of this guy, Tony Lin, an Asian fellow who also criticizes the data on how good the COVID vaccine is. And he sent me a recent video by this Tony Lin, who calls people that promote the vaccine as effective in some way to cut down on hospitalizations and the spread of the infection. He calls them vaccine worshipers. Now, whenever I hear anybody use these kind of ad hominem labels that diminish the reality of the other person, I put up a red flag, because now I'm hearing somebody who wants me to agree with them because they classify a whole group, as bad. And so that means everything about the vaccine promoters is absolutely bad and is awful and evil and whatever. Tony, again, like RFK, puts a lot of data together, but it doesn't hold up. The dots don't connect, at least when I listen to him. He's also a promoter of ivermectin, as a remedy to help with these COVID cases. So, so I sent information from different sources like Reuters and whatever back to this gentleman who was trying to convince me that I'm wrong. And, I happened to, one of the sources I used was Snopes, which has been proved reliable over the years, overall by a lot of other groups like factcheck.org. However, the Snopes founder, David Mickelson, has gotten into trouble recently for embezzling and whatever, and he's known to have promoted something to do with prostitution. I don't know. But that has nothing to do with the accuracy of the website. But so the argument I'm getting from this businessman is that the Snopes is totally bogus because the leader has done something which is immoral and improper. And again, not paying any respect to the information itself. So we go back and forth with this kind of dialogue, and I'm trying to be respectful, but every now and then he calls me a name. So finally, I think he stopped trying to convince me, and I'm thankful for it. But this is the last thing he texted me. He said, I didn't realize you were a millennial snowflake on top of being a liberal. Good luck with your shots. Though facts are facts and data's data, I'm done. Fuck off. So that's the end of that. So this is what you run into when you're trying to have a reasonable dialogue with someone that has a basic assumption, idea fixated, like Robert F. Kennedy, that just won't budge. And it can end up to be kind of nasty. I've run into discussions with people like that follow Lyndon and LaRouche. They tend to be really nasty, and their invectives and four-letter words are flying whenever I bring up a point about Lyndon LaRouche being wrong about something, because, their hero can't be wrong about anything, right? The same happens with Scientology. If you try to poke holes in L. Ron Hubbard's ideation, his theories, and his claims about his military record or whatever, they just go off. They have all these facts to shore up what they want to do, and they do an ad hominem attack on me, calling me whatever, like this guy did, calling me a snowflake. Yeah, it's funny, but it's also tragic when dialogue breaks down like this. And as much as we try to keep it respectful and agree that there are places we're not going to disagree until the facts bear out in the future, we can end up in these rather nasty endings to a relationship. So, yeah, from one snowflake liberal to another, if that's what you think you are, I'll sign off, and thank you for listening.